It has barely been a month since the Federal Reserve claimed that inflation was under control, prematurely aggressively cutting rates, and in what comes as a surprise to absolutely no one who's paying attention, inflation is not dead. In fact, inflation is rising, and not only is it rising right now, but according to new reports, inflation is projected to continue to climb in the future.
I just honestly don't know how people are making it.
This is ridiculous. It's the current economy we live in.
The prices of goods, the prices of food, they're never going down again.
But that's not all. In addition to inflation climbing, we also are seeing one of the biggest cracks forming in the supposedly strong economy, which is consumer spending based on debt. Now, we have known that Americans are racking up insane amounts of credit card debt, taking out loans, but what we are now seeing is a rising delinquency risk, the highest level that has been seen since April of 2020. What this means is that when the debt catches up with the American people and the economy finally slows, but inflation is still rising, there's a good chance unemployment will rise with it, and we could be in a situation with the dreaded S word, stagflation. Now, this is a nightmare. Many of you will already remember this from the 70s and 80s, but ultimately, stagflation is a situation where you have this impossible balancing act. If the Federal Reserve increases rates to try and help bring down inflation, then they have a situation where unemployment rises. If you cut rates too prematurely, well, maybe it helps with job creation, but inflation comes roaring back. This is already what the Federal Reserve was balancing last month and what they're going to have to decide for the rest of the year. So just how bad is it, and what can you do to protect yourself? Let's get into it. U.S. consumers see higher long-run inflation, rising delinquency risk. This article says when inflation a year from now is seen holding steady at 3%, and we'll talk about that in a second, 3 years from now it's seen at 2.7 and 2.9 in 5 years. So this was a survey of consumer expectations. Now, I want to pause because holding steady at 3%, let me ask you a question. What has been the inflation target all along for the Federal Reserve? What is the universal inflation target? 2%. 2%. How many times have we heard that? We are about to see, and I could be wrong, but I believe we are about to see a lot of changing narratives coming out. That 3% is not that bad. That 2.8, 2.9 is close enough to 2. That we're basically on track. Do not let them fool you. You and I both know the truth that it has always been 2%. 2% still means that we're losing our purchasing power. It still means that prices are climbing at the pump and grocery stores and everywhere else. But 3%, don't try and tell me that that's the same. It means that you are actually chipping away and stealing my savings and my wealth at a faster rate than you told me you were even trying to. So this is not acceptable for me, and I don't think it should be for you either, but I have a feeling this is what happens. This is the playbook, right? When you lose control, what do? You just change the goalposts. Change the goalposts. It's always kind of been around 3%. No, it hasn't. Don't let them fool you. Now, the reason this is so concerning is because if we have a situation where inflation is continuing to go up and credit delinquency rates continue to rise, let's take a look at that. Says the report noted the average expected probability of missing a debt payment over the next 3 months rose for a fourth straight month to 14.2%. 14.2% of Americans are in jeopardy of missing a debt payment. Now, this is on the rise. This means that more and more people are unable to make their minimum payments. They're unable to keep up with their debt, which means what? That spending is going to slow, and this is why the economy is going to continue to slow. Of course, the economy has seemed strong. Everyone is financing everything, but when that halts, we have a serious problem. Now, this continues to say, which makes me mad, this suggests some Americans are facing increased issues with managing their borrowing. Yeah, you think? That's what happens when inflation continues to rise and no one can afford the basic cost of living. Oh, don't worry about grocery prices going up. Oh, don't worry that home sale prices continue to go. No, are you kidding me? Of course, most Americans can't afford the basic cost of living and manage their borrowing. It's a crisis for a lot of people out there, which is why it's so interesting that the Fed cut rates at a time when stock market was high, home prices are high. I don't know, is it because it's an election year? Maybe. Now, let me be clear. I am not trying to blame inflation on the Federal Reserve and say that because they made a 50 basis point cut, inflation is here to stay. There are bigger problems that were already happening. This just inflated the inflation more. But ultimately, we know that the war in the Middle East is continuing to escalate, and it does not look good that this is going to slow down anytime soon. This, of course, is going to have oil prices increasing. In fact, in the short-term survey, I saw that it was 3.4% that it was going to rise over the next 12 months. I believe it said only 3.4%, which again is laughable because if our target is 2%, why is it suddenly only 3.4%? That might be less than it was in the last 2 years, but doesn't mean that it's a win. Do not let them fool you. That is what makes me mad, is when the narrative and the goalposts change. But again, there are a lot of factors at play. We're seeing China increase their stimulus into the economy, which also could have an impact on oil prices. There's a reason that food and groceries continue to rise. There's a lot going on here. And if you ask me, inflation is not stopping anytime soon. And if we have a situation again where inflation continues to rise, but the economy finally stalls the way that we know it should be, the way that it's just financed on debt and a propped up stock market that cannot last forever. Again, everything that goes up like this has to come down. We know that stocks were already at an all-time high when the Fed made their rate cut, boosting them even more. But what's going to happen? All I can tell you is that the value of our dollar, this is the one thing that's for sure, the value of our dollar will not be what it is today, a year from now, a month from now, a day from now. Honestly, by the time you're done watching this video, your dollar will be worth less. That is the sad truth of what's going on in our country right now with inflation. And like I've said before, if you don't think that a recession is happening or imminent, and that our government isn't going to print more dollars to try and help people, well, we're going to see that inflation rise even faster. We're going to see the value of our dollar decline much more rapidly. What it comes down to for me is, what can we control? What is in our control? All of this noise, it's not in our control. We cannot control the economy or the Fed's decision about a rate cut or inflationary pressures that are coming from overseas. None of that is in our control. But what we can control is making sure that we are protected outside of the system. Now, this is why I talk about physical gold and silver, because if you hold it, you own it. A dollar is just an IOU, but it's an IOU for nothing, for air. It's a fiat currency. It's made up. It's based on the full trust and credit and faith of the United States government, which again, if you ask me, is laughable, because we both know that their credit, their word is worth nothing. They're going to turn around and create more currency. And this is why I say dollar-denominated, not just dollar. Because when we're thinking about this devaluation of your savings, your retirement, whatever it might be, not everyone just has a pile of cash hidden somewhere or a savings account that they're counting on. You think about a 401k, you think about an IRA, you think about any other way that you have your finances set up where you have a dollar-denominated savings, whatever that is, something that you're counting on, whether it's to live off of or to leave a legacy, whatever it might be. If it is dollar denominated, it is under threat. All of this is currently taking your wealth from you. That should make you mad. It makes me mad. Because what right do they have? And then they turn around and tell us that 3% is normal. They turn around and tell us that it's out of their control. No, do not let them lie to you. And it's time to take your power back, take control back, and make sure that you are in charge of your own destiny, your own finances, that you are prepared for what is coming next. And if any of that is concerning to you, or you're trying to figure out where to start, or you want a second opinion on your current plan, that is what our team is for. Talk to a member of our team, click the link below, or call us at the number below, and make sure that you have a strategy in place that makes sense for you, for your goals and your concerns, because everyone is different. And if anyone would benefit from understanding this information, please, as always, like, subscribe, and share. It helps us get the word out. As always, thank you so much for being here. I'm Taylor Kenny with ITM Trading, your trusted source for all things gold, silver, and lifelong wealth protection. Until next time.